Women and mothers created many of the fairy tales that we know and love today and other folklore in order to teach their children lessons while entertaining them and giving them a bedtime story. The Brothers Grimm and several other authors of the era collected these folklore, fairy tales, and bedtime stories as a way to compile their literature and share those lessons with the rest of the world. Many of the women who were key parts in creating these narratives and who originally came up with the story and told it to their children don't receive the credit in their contribution to the academia that we have today. It's known that the Grimm brothers were assisted by other academics and used other people in order to write and perfect their stories, but it is less known that women were key parts in making and contributing to these stories. The Land of Stories was written by Chris Colfer and is based on two twins, Alex and Connor, exploring this land of stories. So it's based on several of the Grimm brothers fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen and several other fairy tales of the era. This is created a new dimension, and their characters such as Snow White, Cinderella, and other princesses' kingdoms, these characters each have their own kingdom in this world. Alex and Connor are dropped in the middle of this world whenever they receive a fairy tale book from their grandmother, who we later find out is the fairy godmother. Chris Colfer, the author of this series, later tells the readers the origins or canonical origins of the Grimm brothers fairy tales and Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales. In the Land of Stories, the idea is that characters such as the fairy godmother, Mother Goose, and other key fairies in this world were able to cross over and share their stories with our universe, which in the series is known as the Otherworld. Fairies were able to share these stories in order to instill the idea of magic in our world during times of recession and the Dark Ages. Whether knowing it or not, Colfer gives a nod to the women who were key parts in creating the Grimm brothers fairy tales. Many of these women were never given credit, and while there is no proof that Colfer actually knows the true history of the origins of these fairy tales, he is able to kind of give space to the notion that women were key parts in creating many of the fairy tales we know and love today.